Welcome back to Timo's Dinky and Diecast. Today I'm going to be doing a Dinky 465 Morris van. This one have a Capstan is the van I want to do, although the one that I've got here is actually Royal Mail. I suppose I could have done it in Royal Mail, especially since the base plate says Royal Mail on it, but I got this one specifically to have a Capstan van. Because I had those decals, professionally made ones, so I've been looking for one of these for a while. So I finally found one, and this one looks in pretty reasonable condition. Doesn't have any serious damage of any sort. A little bit dented here and there, but for the most part, it's intact. It's obviously very play worn, and there's some some muck on the back. Well, that'll come off when I clean it, when I strip the paint. So, the Royal Mail van has the black roof, and the base says right on it, Royal Mail van. So if somebody wants me to make a Royal Mail van, they can send me a Capstan van, or one of the other Morris vans that just says Morris van on the bottom, and I'll swap the bases. And I can make a Royal Mail one. So it's got one rivet, and then the other end is a fold over sheet metal thing. So I'm going in with the Dremel tool with this tiny little burr and taking off the head of the spread out part of the rivet. So I used to do these with drills. In this case, it would be hard to do with a drill because the hole is right up against the front bumper of the car, so a drill would not be that great in this situation. So there, I've got it done. Now I've got to get it off the back. These things, they don't go in well and they don't come out well. They're always a bit of a challenge. In this case, because it's all bent up, and I don't want to break the casting by putting any kind of force on it. So I'm going to have to bend it a little bit to try and get it so that I can get it off of the body. So these are my flat parallel pliers. If you don't have these, if you're doing stuff like this, these things are available. I even think most of them are made in the UK, and mine are certainly. I got mine. They had teeth on the jaws, and I put them in a grinder and ground them off. But it turns out you can buy them without teeth, which just are smooth. So I'm going to use my old method. I'm going to take off an axle. At least I'm going to take off one of them so I have the length of the axle for when I want to make new axles, because you'll see later I'll be making brand new axles for this. I do it for all of my models. So fortunately this one has all the wheels. I don't have any extra wheels in stock. So if I get a model that is missing a wheel, it's going to have to wait until I get some wheels. So the other side, I'm using this pair of pliers with the jaws ground off of it, just to cut that axle. It's a lot faster than Dremel tooling it or anything. So these tires are obviously typically these ones from the 50s. They've all dried up and they've cracked, and sometimes they've glued themselves to the hub. So they're coming off. Obviously, they just go straight into the garbage, and I'll replace them with new tires. So it's a simple model. There's all the parts. I only have one hole to drill. So I haven't been doing a lot of my drilling in the milling machine, because the problem is you put it in the milling machine, and usually because it's such a Dinky toys are odd shapes, the thing wants to rock. But in this case, it's got kind of square sides, and I'm able to rest it on top of the jaws where the fenders are, the mud guards, wings, whatever you want to call them, and it's not rocking at all, which is great. So I've drilled the hole, but I'm not going to tap it in there. I've got this new tap handle. This is the one that has a ratcheting. So you set it for going clockwise, And you can see I'm flipping it around because I'm trying to see that I'm going in square. So when I get to the bottom, I have to switch the ratcheting mechanism so that it'll take it out again. And I put a screw in there, and that screw will protect the threaded hole from the stripping process and from the painting process. So I go outside and put this boiling water into the bucket with the parts, with the base and the body and the wheels. And then when it comes out, this paint is off of it, and I go to the wire brush on my drill press. So with the wire brush, I'm able to get all the surface corrosion off of the toy, make it shiny. The base is very, very much twisted. I can use these pliers for various parts, like this little hook on the end. It's a trick to get it right, and this is just a perfect tool. And then these parts of the base surrounding the wheel well have been bent, and they have to be straightened out as well. The whole thing's going to have to be flat, and these pliers are too small for that job. The other way I do it is to go onto my bench vise and go with a small hammer, and I hammer the thing. It's like I'm forging it. And it's surprising how you can hammer the thing and make it flat. You would think it would just spring back, but it doesn't. You hammer at it a few light taps, and it actually winds up straightening the thing as long as the anvil you're on is straight. So there we go. Made the thing flat. It was very, very twisted. There's a little adjustment needs to be made on the back. See, the back is not, it goes flat and then it bends to where before that hook, this hook that I'm putting in here now. And I have a problem. I can put it in there, but it goes too far to the front over the front bumper. So the back has been dented inward, which I didn't notice before, but I noticed putting the base on. So I'm using the pliers to pull that out. It doesn't have to come out very much, and let's just see if this is going to fit better. Well, there you go. Bob's your uncle. So it's important to test fit those things just to make sure that, especially when they have those tricky bends, because if they're bent wrong, it could put the whole front part out of whack. So there I've used a magnet. I painted one half of the base. Now I'm using this tool that I made in an earlier episode, which I'll be reposting soon on my on this new channel. Now I'm showing here I'm using a spray bomb, because this is exactly the right color. I happen to have it in stock. Problem is the spray bomb's been sitting on the shelf for about a year, and I didn't get the whole thing painted, so I wound up mixing this Vallejo paint with white. This is different though. This is going to be it's a two-tone vehicle, and so this is the darker tone blue. And it's tricky to get this right because the pictures online, they all have different lighting, so the colors look different. So I kind of have to look at a whole bunch of pictures, and it kind of gives you an idea of what the color really needs to be. And I think I got it pretty close. Now it's a difficult because it's a wavy surface where the line is. So for cutting the tape, I put it right on top and ran my thumb over it. And then I come on with a knife and cut out that shape that I need. And in the front, there's the bodywork makes like a U-turn. So for that one, I don't think I show it here. I don't think I videotaped it, but I used a punch to cut a piece that would go around the front there. So here I've got it all taped up, and here it's painted. I wasn't able to get into the spray booth on this model, so it's going to be a shorter video. But, you know, a lot of my colleagues... Oh. Sorry, I took a break there. You might have heard there's a thunderstorm going outside, and it may interrupt me, but I think I'll just let it go. Yeah, many of my colleagues don't show painting at all. I show it sometimes. In this case, for whatever reason, I didn't feel like dragging the camera into the paint booth. So here I'm taking off. You can see how much tape I used to get this thing to be properly protected. And even then it wasn't quite perfect, so I had to touch up a couple of areas. But I put these tiny bits of tape in that inside corner. It's a very challenging tape job for this particular model. Of course, the result is stunning. It really is a beautiful model, this one. Now these lines, even though I took all that trouble, they didn't come out quite perfect, but I was able to touch them up later on. I don't show touching them up. Maybe I should. You would see all the work I do in the background. So here's my little stand for painting the hubs. This way I get to paint both sides of the wheel hubs at the same time. So I'm using, let's say, Tamiya paint. This is just the right color because on this model, the body is two-tone. It has a light blue and a dark blue, and then the hubs are in between. So it's actually three different blues. So here's my little envelope. You can see I've got my Capstan decals and some other decals in the same bag. Now this one, the decal paper, the thing is printed onto decal paper, and the decal paper has the material all the way across. So you've got to cut it to the right shape. So here I'm getting it prepared so that it fits in the right spot, and I leave a little tab on the end. This is a thing I've learned. I can't live without it now. And what I do is I leave the tab on the end, and then I cut the decal material and leave the paper partly intact. And this way, when I go to pull on the decal, I've got a piece to hold right away with my tweezers. I don't have to push a piece over with my thumb and then struggle to get enough grip and get you can see I'm pulling it from that part that's sticking out. I find that that's made it a much easier process since I've started doing that. And these are beautiful decals. They just look gorgeous, and they go on pretty easy. Now I'm putting on top of it, this is the Mr. Hobby version of Microsol, and when you put this on, this is a harrowing experience. It frightens the hell out of me. Here's what it looks like. It all wrinkles up and you think it's destroyed, but then after half an hour it's dry and it looks like it's painted on. And then I do the same thing for the other side. This one I'm going to show you with just a tiny bit of pseudo time lapse, so you can see how it goes on, how the thing wrinkles up. Now here's something I'm showing some background. Usually I don't show this. What I do is there's excess water, and so what I do is I've got this tissue. It's a Kim wipe. These are fancy. You can use these for washing lenses to dry off the excess water without moving the decal around. So now the decal is solidified mostly in place, and I'm putting the softener again. And now I'm going to get the camera on it. You can see how wrinkly it is, and then gradually, time lapse, it looks perfect. It's pretty scary though when you put that stuff on and it wrinkles up. I put a coat of clear coat on top of it to protect those decals. So now I'm going to be spraying the silver. I like to spray the bumpers and the silver parts. This is I'm doing a pretty accurate restoration on this. There's not going to be an interior or windows, and so the chrome parts are going to be painted the way they were in the factory. Martin Dares did one of these just last week. Did it as a Royal Mail van, and he did the grill differently than Dinky did it. And the grill should only have a metal frame, and then the inside is the same color as the paint. And I've seen that on other British these beautiful little vans. But of course, Dinky's not going to do something fancy like that because it's much more difficult for them to paint it in the factory. So here the whole thing has been covered up, and just the little parts that get the chrome. And I'm using this spray, Rust-Oleum metallic silver, and that's what it looks like because this is the one that gets, it's beautiful. You spray it, it dries very quickly, and if you put your finger on it, it doesn't leave a fingerprint, doesn't leave a mark. It's a very sturdy paint finish, and it also has a very nice smooth light grain of the metallic material, and so it looks very smooth, just like a real Dinky toy, like a mint Dinky toy that out of the factory. So I do all that taping. I know that at Dinky they would have had some kind of a mask in the factory that would go over it, and it would be sprayed. They would have a whole row of them with that mask on it. And actually with these particular toys, the dark blue and the light blue have very poor margins because it's very hard to make a mask that's going to be perfect. So I can use the masking tape and get a bit better job, but it's still not perfect. So, but that's okay because then it's realistic because none of the ones out of the factory had a perfect paint job. So this one involved a lot of fancy taping. I spent a long time making tiny little bits of tape and getting every little bit covered and pressed them all in there so that the paint wouldn't bleed underneath. So there the silver is on. And you see I'm picking it up with a piece of tissue paper. I don't want to get my fingerprints on it. I don't want to get any fingerprints on it until after I do the final video on the turntable. So here's brand new O-rings. I have all my parts. I have a whole list of my sources. So if you're wanting to do these things yourself, you can access that list in my notes, and you can find those parts. Most of them are from Amazon, including these axles. So this is my axle technique. If you haven't seen it before, this is a hollow stainless steel tubing that's 2 millimeters outside diameter, and these little nails are, I don't know what they're for. They're some kind of decorative nails, and they're perfect. They have a button shape, and when you grind, or I polish the end, and you can polish it by hand, whatever. That doesn't take much to take off that bronze finish that it has. And then it looks exactly like a Dinky toy mushroom should look. So I put a little epoxy, and then I put the mushroom, push the nail in. There you can see it pushed back out. So you got to do this job fast. I got to do these all four wheels on the same go, so I'm not wasting my 5-minute epoxy. So I've got to do the whole thing in about 2.5 minutes, because after 2.5 minutes it starts to harden, and then the glue is harder to put in place, and it's not as effective because it's already partially dried, or hardened, I guess you would say. So there, I got the last one in. Oh, we got an extra one. Now we got them all in there. And it's a roller. If you don't know, that's copying Andrew Price in his Maple Leaf Customs. He's doing mostly Hot Wheels and Matchbox ones, customization, and he likes to push them across the bench just demonstrate that they roll well. So here's the final assembly. It's not a very complicated model, so not too many steps in the completion here. So I finessed that thing in there. I put my one screw. I use a brand new screw for that. The other one will be paint stripped and will be reused later on. And there you have it. So this is just to remind you of what it started out like. I mean, it looks pretty rough. Partly that's because it's sitting tilted because it's lacking one tire. But anyway, let's see what it looks like now. There we have it. I think it's a beautiful toy. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble from YouTube because it's a children's toy and it has a picture of a Capstan cigarette smoldering. I don't think you could make a toy like this nowadays, and I have to say, if there are any children watching, don't get into the habit of smoking. That's not good for anybody. So yeah, that's why it says not made for children, because sometimes you get a toy that has something like this. And this is a piece of history, really, because in the past people had different attitudes about things like smoking, and other things have changed. So anyway, the reason I made this toy is because it's just a beautiful toy, and it's also an interesting piece of history that they would make such a toy and market it to children. Anyway, I love this toy, and I've been looking forward for a long time to make this model, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky and Diecast. Till next time, be seeing you.